The bell rang once in the town square, dull and heavy, like a warning to the soul. Dust hovered in the late afternoon air, glowing gold beneath the sun, while the townspeople gathered in a wide, silent circle. No one spoke. No one stopped it. They never did. Eliza Hart was already on her knees when the rope tightened. It burned into her wrists as the horse shifted forward, its hooves scraping the dirt impatiently. Her dress, once pale blue, once clean, was now brown, with dust and streaked with blood where her skin had broken. Her hair hung loose down her back, tangled and wild, clinging to her tear-streaked face. She didn't scream. Not anymore. Screaming had taught her nothing but how quickly hope could be beaten out of a person. Infertile, someone shouted. Cursed, another voice added. The word echoed louder than the bell had. Infertile, as if it were a crime, as if it were a choice. Eliza had been married 3 years. 3 winters of prayer, 3 springs of disappointment. When her husband died in a mining collapse, the town didn't mourn him for long, but they remembered her failure. A woman without children was a woman without worth in this place. And when the crops failed that summer, they needed someone to blame. The horse lurched forward. Liza's knees slammed into the dirt, pain exploding up her legs as she was dragged across the square. Dust filled her mouth. Stones cut into her palms. She bit her lip until she tasted blood, refusing to give them the satisfaction of hearing her beg. Faces passed her by, men she had cooked for, women she had helped birth children, neighbors who once smiled at her. Now they watched with folded arms and hardened eyes. Even the preacher stood back, Bible clutched tightly, lips pressed into a thin line. "Let this be a lesson," the sheriff called out. "God's judgment is not to be questioned." Eliza's vision blurred. The world narrowed to pain and heat, and the rope pulling her forward, stripping away what little strength she had left. She thought of her mother, buried on a hill far away. She thought of the child she never held. She wondered faintly if dying here would finally be enough for them. Then the horse screamed. The rope snapped, not from breaking but from being cut clean through. The sudden release threw Eliza forward into the dirt. She gasped, coughing, confused. The horse reared and bolted riderless as a shadow fell across her broken body. Boots stepped into view, heavy, worn, stained with mud and mountain dust. A man stood there, tall as a pine, broad as a bear, his long dark hair tied back with leather. A thick beard framed a face carved by wind and cold. A knife gleamed in his hand, its blade still humming from the cut. The crowd stepped back as one. "What in hell do you think you're doing?" the sheriff demanded. The man didn't look at him. He knelt instead, cutting the remaining rope from Eliza's wrists with careful, gentle movements that didn't match his size. "Saving her," he said, quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried, like thunder rolling down from the mountains. And for the first time that day, Eliza cried. They called him Caleb Boone, though most only knew the name in whispers. Mountain man, trapper, killer, some said. Savior, others would soon learn. Caleb lifted Eliza as if she weighed nothing, her head falling against his chest. She was shaking violently now, not from pain alone, but from the sudden shock of mercy. No one had touched her kindly in months. "You can't take her," the sheriff said, hand drifting toward his gun. "She's being punished." Caleb finally looked up. His eyes were cold, not cruel, but carved by loss. Eyes that had seen men freeze to death in snowstorms. Eyes that had buried friends beneath avalanches. Whatever fear the sheriff thought he carried died in his throat. "Then punish me," Caleb said. Silence swallowed the square. Caleb turned and walked away, carrying Eliza toward the edge of town. No one stopped him, not because they agreed, but because something older than law stood in front of them now. Something wild. Eliza drifted in and out of consciousness as he carried her into the foothills. She remembered warmth, a fire, water pressed to her lips. She woke later inside a small cabin, the smell of pine and smoke thick in the air. "You're safe," Caleb said from across the room. Safe. The word felt unreal. Days passed. Her wounds healed slowly. Caleb spoke little, but when he did, there was no judgment in his voice. No pity either, just truth. She learned he had buried a wife once, a child too, lost to winter and sickness. The mountains had taken everything from him, but they had not made him cruel. One morning, Eliza stood outside the cabin, looking down at her hands. Hands that still worked, still lived. "I was never cursed," she said quietly. Caleb nodded. "I know." When the town came for her weeks later, angry, afraid, desperate to reclaim their control, they found a woman standing tall beside a mountain, man who feared nothing they could offer. And this time Eliza did not kneel. The rope would never touch her again.